All right, all right. Hopefully everybody can hear me just fine. Got to do my little sound check on my own. If you can't hear me, let me know. But Joe Courtemanche, who's our guest, says that I am sounding great. I can hear me, so if you don't like it, it's probably just who I am. So today we're going to try to talk briefly about something that we can talk about for a very long time. My guest, Joe Courtemanche, and I have been friends for a very long time, and we've both been publishing for a fair bit of time. I'm up to I'm at 17 years ish, maybe now, and he's been doing audiobooks. He'll tell me a little bit for about how long, if we want to. So we kind of live and die by the, I can actually hear you, Joe. Let's get rid of that. There you go. He likes to have his dogs barking in the background. It's or his birds. Looks like I clicked the wrong thing. So anyway, for the last 15 years or so, my primary driver of my income has been sales on Amazon and publishing books, those that I've published by others, and those that I've written myself. And I have an intrepid narrator who has turned some of my books into audiobooks. And he's got this really, I don't know if he wants me to call it silky smooth voice, but it's a great radio voice. It's a great narrating voice. And he really has the aptitude for it. So he's going to be able to give us lots of advice on that. Before I bring him in here, I wanted to say just sort of a couple things about the whole industry, just to sort of start the conversation off a little bit when Joe gets in on here. So Amazon has really managed to basically break the entire traditional model of selling books and publishing and distributing them. It allows an author to completely skip a publisher altogether, right? You could go on and I think it's called KDP now. It used to be called Create Space, and it would even like take a Word document and it would just get it ready for you, and you wouldn't have to pay anything for that, compared to some of the other vanity press options that are out there that would be between 500 and 1,000, and it would go up. And then, of course, there's the fact that everyone was buying their books on Amazon, which drove out a number of the online brick and mortar retail stores. And the problem with that, from a practical point of view, me as an author and a publisher, was as the bookstores died, that took away a marketing avenue. Like, it took away the possibility to schedule book signings and things of that sort. Now, of course, there are still some that are out there, like Barnes & Noble, but the glutton authors, if we want to put it that way, made them get really stingy on who they would allow to come in. I myself was only ever able to get one book signing at a Barnes & Noble, and that was only because I happened to be a local. And I lost money on that. I lost like $300 on that. It's a funny story for another time. Where I'm going with this is Amazon has allowed creators to come into this space with very few obstacles. But then the problem is that once the creators are in the space, it's like hand-to-hand fighting to try to get any traction there. And so one of the takeaways that I want you to have, if you're watching this either live, I'm gesturing to the screen over here that tells me how many people are watching live, as if you can see the screen. The thing that is going to give an author any kind of edge right now is the reader. And so if you find a creator, and it doesn't have to be an author per se, it could be like Joe, who creates audiobooks. Could even be a filmmaker, low budget filmmaker, somebody who's really pushing the edges there. If you find somebody whose work that you like, you've really got to latch onto them. You have got to you've got to adopt them, really, because the competitive edge really comes down to who has the audience that's willing to go to bat for their creator. And we are actually we have a nice little circle of influence that you're witnessing a little bit today. And I'll just show you that we've got a book here. I'm going to make it bigger here. So Mikey DeMercurio is actually becoming a friend of the program. And the one who made his audiobook is our guest tonight, Joseph Courtemanche. And Joseph Courtemanche has also done the narration for my own books. 2 of them are here. I'll bring them up here. And I happen to know that some of the people who are watching today are in that circle of connections on X and Facebook, people who know all of us, who advocate for all of us. And we are so thankful for that. We need you. And all I can say is what I've been saying to everyone all the time. Keep doing it and buy 1,000 copies and donate them to, I don't care. Just buy them. Just buy them. Give them as gifts. Every Christmas, there's just so much that's out there, because the problem is, not to get too mercenary about it, but for an author to actually continue to write, this has been one of my problems. I have focused personally so much on the publishing side, because that's where my income comes from, that I've over the years had to neglect the writing side. And there are some people who really enjoy my writings. Some of them are special forces in the military, and they have given me threats. They want to know why I haven't finished them. And I say the same thing every time. Did you buy 1,000 books? Did you tell? No, I don't say any of that stuff, because he'd break my neck like that, right? At any rate, so the takeaway, I want this as the backdrop as you hear us talk about being in this industry, and very likely going to be talking about Amazon throughout it in different ways. Amazon has shattered the paradigm, and it's really going to be up to the readers to help pull us together, the writers together, so that we can continue to produce the things that you enjoy. So adopt us, make us your very own son, daughter, if that's relevant. Advocate for us. It really means the world, and it's a win-win-win for everyone. It's a win for you because you get to enjoy more content, and it's a win for us because we don't starve to death, which is always nice. I see Jeff says that he just picked up The Fisher King's Apprentice on Audible. Thank you, appreciate it. Hope you enjoy it. Just so you know, the Warden Watch was first, if you care about the order of things, but I digress. So that's all I'm going to say about that, except for, of course, the obligatory follow us on X and all that other stuff. But it's time now to get Courtemanche in here. So first I'm going to activate his audio. Joe, are you there?
No. I'm here, Tony.
Okay. And there he is. All right.
That's my rabbi outfit. So.
Jeff, no, well, I appreciate it. It's fine. So Joe, just jump off, in whatever direction you want to go to start it out with.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me and being my friend. I like your writing. I first met you as my publisher when, through a tragic tale of coincidences, I won a high award in the Christian Publishing Award for my first book, Assault on St. Agnes. And The agent I had at the time did unnice things to me in my book, but Tony was gracious enough to take me on and publish the book. It is award-winning. We didn't just put that on the cover for fun.
Yep.
I won an award from Tony's publishing house and the ministry because it is a Christian-themed book. And that was 2015, I believe, that happened. And I started doing audiobooks at about the same time. And as you pointed out, super fans, which I believe you may have written the best book on that topic, are the key to everything we do. Since Michael DiMercurio and Supersonic Redhead and I teamed up on X and got interest going because Mikey and I snipe at each other constantly, then Supersonic jumps in and bashes us both in the head. We've grown in our followership a lot. And we've had people asking questions about the books, and I've seen my sales go up on all my audiobooks as a result of that. Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla. There's no denying it. And they had a big influence over the last couple of years, which I'll talk about if we get a minute here. But I started narrating about the time my book was published and very quickly found out for me, and I'd been doing voiceover work since about 2002, that there was a lot more money to be made narrating audiobooks than writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed onto that and ran with it. I have never lacked for work. I think part of that is because I can do a lot of characters and keep them distinct. In DiMercurio's latest book, Ambush of the Dragon, I think I quit counting at 50 distinct voices I had to do.
Wow.
Now, how distinct some of them were, I'll be the first to tell you, if they had 2 sentences in the book, I was not going to create a backstory for them, But they had to sound different than anybody else that was in the control room or the White House or wherever. And that's a hard thing to do. You have to be imaginative. I took a bunch of acting classes at the Guthrie Theater, which is certainly a respected institution, and some voiceover classes from a local, it was actually a community ed program where I got started doing it. And then I read books for the blind and read the newspaper live on the air at 6 o'clock in the freaking morning in a radio control room for a while. And I liked it. I loved it. I loved getting the feedback from the blind people that listened to the books that they really enjoyed the narration. So it's been an interesting ride. And right now, I was telling Tony just before we came on, I'm completely booked out for at least the next 5 months. And that's if I just really slam out a bunch of books. Realistically, I probably should be done sometime in late September, maybe November. But it's a curse in some ways, but it's about the best curse you can have to have too much work.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what COVID did to the publishing industry.
Yeah, okay.
Every nitwit out there who could put a crayon on a Big Chief tablet wrote a book. And then they got somebody that knew how to type to put it into a computer. And they uploaded the Word document to KDP and created their own cover art. And KDP is actually an excellent platform for somebody who's not with a publisher. But you could create a book that looked professional. Now, the content of it was garbage in 9 out of 10 cases. But KDP doesn't care because if they sell 10 copies of the thing, they make some money. And if you put 50,000 crappy authors out during the COVID thing, and you make $10 on each one, you can do the math. It's a lot of money. Yeah. Because Amazon keeps 60% of everything on audiobooks. So you buy a $10 audiobook, and there are a few of them out there. The narrator gets 20%, the author gets 20%, and Amazon gets 60%. Yep. So the numbers definitely favor Amazon. And they have their own creative chain. So what I do is I record books on a platform called ACX. And it's owned by Audible, which is owned by Amazon. So their whole system is set up for everything to go to Amazon first. And you get the best distribution and everything if you sign it exclusive for, I think it's 90 days. I never pay too much attention because it's irrelevant to my end of the thing. But when COVID came along, not only did the authors expand dramatically because people were trapped in their homes, everybody with a Yeti microphone decided they would record their own audiobooks.
Mm.
And so right before COVID hit, they had at ACX, they had a system where they did it by AI. They had AI listen for the proper sound levels, the right interval between the beginning of the chapter and the first sound, and then at the end of the chapter and the final break before the next chapter. And it was speeding up. Things were speeding up dramatically. I had a couple of books go through in 3 days pre-COVID. Then COVID came along, and it was like somebody threw a boat anchor in the size of the one you'd have on the Nimitz from a 15-foot Lund with a 50-horse motor. It just jerked to a violent stop. And the reality of it was they had so many bad books, it was hurting their brand.
Mm.
So they reinstituted having people listen to the books. And then they could go back to them and say, it's not even intelligible. You got to redo it. And then they created a program this last year where you're a preferred producer. And it's a very small percentage of people that do that. You have little to no error rate in the books you do. All your sound quality is great. And the authors or the rights holders, depending if it's a publishing house, are given the opportunity to grade you as a narrator. So you have to have a very high score in order to get this thing. And once I achieved that, I noticed that the amount of time it took for them to review the books went back down to 3 days plus, which was great. But they have clouded the entire industry with all these garbage books that are still out there. And there's a scam, I don't know any other way to put it, where people run these ads saying, narrating audiobooks could be your new income. Well, I got to tell you, if you put 100 new narrators out there, and that's about what it seems like there are every week, it doesn't take long for them to throw away all the equipment they bought or sell it on Facebook Marketplace. Or they start doing what I consider to be disreputable, harmful things like, I'll narrate your entire audiobook for $50. Like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
what a bargain that is.
Well,
Because even if you do revenue share, like I do for a lot of books, where I take a fixed percentage of the royalties for 7 years, because it's worth way more than that, other than on books that are probably not going to sell at all. And I've done a couple of those books for friends, and I don't mind because it broadens my repertoire. But these people are selling out for $50, and people who should be getting paid $250 per hour
right.
are losing out. You can't compete with somebody that's not interested in doing right by themselves.
Yeah. And one of the problems with Audible right now is it's really a monopoly, right? I mean, there is no other real outlet for someone who wanted to put a audiobook out somewhere else and get like a higher share of the revenue. Is that right?
Well, there are a few places that do and pay a little bit better, but a couple of them have also folded in the last few years because Amazon just clobbers them because they will do the monopolistic kinds of things that have happened in other industries, and they will absolutely crucify one of these audiobook companies for a while.
Mm-hmm.
They'll market directly against them, and they kill them off. So if you're an author that's invested your time in it, and you get an audiobook recorded, and you don't own the files, when that publishing company goes out of business, you're left with no further revenue.
Yeah. So there's some people who are asking some questions about one gentleman's wanted to know, and I've answered some of them. I'm just sort of bringing you up to speed on it. Wants to know, does it matter to the author whether a purchase is made with a credit or not? Now, on the book side, I can say that it does not matter. The author or publisher will get the same amount. Well, what's the case for an audiobook?
If somebody gifts you an audiobook, it doesn't matter. So I want you to listen to something I've written or narrated, and I send you a credit for a book and I pay full retail on it, it doesn't matter. You're still going to, as the publisher or author, make the same amount of money. The difference is, as a publisher or a narrator, with each audiobook that's published, you get, well, in my case, I get 25 US and 25 UK books. So I can send them to either market. They're complete downloads. They're no different than what you buy. And all I ask in return is that people give a fair and honest review. And I've had some reviews come in at less than 5 stars for a couple of them. Fortunately for me, almost everybody that listens to the stuff I record is giving me 5s because I work very hard at what I do. So if we're giving out freebies to generate interest in a book, no, we don't see any real revenue on that. So that's a difference.
So those 25, you send out 5, just clarifying, of these freebies. The author does not get a return on that, and neither do you. Is that right?
No, yeah, but your book is showing they're a super fan.
Okay.
We all have super fans. Some narrators have tens of thousands of people that have listened to their books, and just in the last year. So those narrators create a super fan base, and that's how you get your best responses, because super fans will often be the most harsh critics. You send them the thing to listen to, and yeah, put up a review when you're done. You usually do well with it, but the thing is, then they can put the reviews on Amazon or Audible in my case, and that is worth more than gold. Because if I get 10 people that have gotten free downloads out of the 25 I distribute to come on Audible, and it says right at the top, I was given this by the author or narrator, and saying nice things about you, it changes all the algorithms for search on your genre of book, boosts your sales almost automatically. And then more people see it, more people. It's got a real snowball effect. And I've seen that take place.
So Jeff Rogue wants to know, what about the free credits that he gets with his Audible sub? Will those get full compensation for the creators?
Yes, my understanding is that they do.
Yeah. So
but you're paying a subscription to Audible that underwrites that. So
right. So free, like free education, free healthcare.
Yeah, free lunch, baby.
So I'll answer this question a little bit from the publisher of books side, the hard copy side. And there's really a huge backstory on this, and I think I will share just a little bit of it. But if you go back to the Great Depression, the bookstores were really suffering, and obviously everyone was. I'll come back, Shaw. Shaw's giving me grief now, so this is what I have to put up with. Anyway,
you've been putting up with me for 10 years.
Shaw's he's a different customer though. He's got an evil eye. Yeah, no, I know you're evil too, so I take it back. So you go back to the Great Depression. Before that, essentially, bookstores were just like a regular retail store will be today. You know, for the most part, you go and you buy the inventory and you try to get rid of it, but you're stuck with the inventory. You don't usually get to just send it back. And so people would be very careful about, a company might be very careful about how much they would stock of something. And so during the Great Depression, the bookstores were going out of business. So they basically made a deal with them, the publishers and the bookstores, that basically, no, it'll be more like a consignment thing. So we will send you the books and you don't have to pay for them until you sell them. And the bookstores get to send the books back basically anytime that they want. So this was obviously a no-lose situation for the bookstores, and the publishers didn't want to go out of business either, so it kind of worked. This is how I lost money at my book signing. I sold like 30 copies, but the bookstore sent back 50 and who they sent them back to me because I'm the publisher, and I had to eat the cost of all the printed copies because they got to send them
Did,
back.
did they tear the covers off?
Not that time, but a lot of times when they return a book, yeah, there'll be stickers all over them. So their thinking is, well, you can just turn around and resell them. Well, not if you got stickers on them and you've beaten them up. No, you really can't. But the other thing is, as part of that old deal, was that the sort of standard discount is 55% off of the retail. So if a book is retail at $10, they buy it from you for $4.50. Okay, and so you can already see that out of that $4.50 that are left, then that gets split between the publisher and the author, and the traditional revenue share for the, again, this is traditional before Amazon and whatnot, was 10, 15, at most 20%. So out of that $4.50, they would have to pay the dollar to print it. So it's $3.50. The author is going to get 10 to 15% of that. So maybe only 30 or 40 cents per book. So that's not good, right? So Amazon came along, and it has allowed people to set different retail amounts, but Amazon still tries to get that 50%, just like the book retailer. So like you can understand why like a brick and mortar Barnes and Noble would want to have more because they've got to pay for electricity. They have all these other physical expenses. So that sort of makes sense. But Amazon doesn't have that, and they still want their 50%, right? So what's happening right now is that the simplicity of Amazon makes it so that, for the most part, most authors prefer to still do their sales through Amazon because you place the order on Amazon, within 1-2 days at the most, you have your book, right? Like if I were to fulfill an order, like if someone ordered a book directly from me and I shipped it, it would still take 4 or 5 days because of USPS, right? So the advantages of Amazon are there. So what I did is I started Gutenberg Press, as you know, but maybe a lot of the other people don't know, because then I get to cut out Amazon from the distribution side of it. So this goes to the question. Who asked it? Let's see here. Let's see. Was it Joe Shaw?
He's going to threaten me because I haven't done a sequel to St. Agnes.
Oh, yeah, it was Joe Shaw. He says, has anyone considered making your audiobook available on your own platform or your website? And he gives for $5. I'm not sure what the that part of it is, but that's actually what I'm hoping to eventually do with Gutenberg Press, is to carve out an online retail place that claws back some of that money that's just going to this big giant company and gives higher shares to the author and the publisher. So that was kind of where all that was. Shaw, what was, clarify for me what the $5 thing was. But while you're doing that, what Courtemanche is saying is that you have the right to make the book available on your own platform for whatever you want, but everyone gets their audiobooks through Audible anyway. So you really,
pretty much,
yeah, you're not really. You might gain an extra $2 on one sale if you go that way, but you're more likely to get $100 over 25 sales through Audible. So that's kind of what people have to deal with.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And before I forget, because you mentioned Jeff before, I have found that I've developed amazing relationships with listeners through X. And I never had that success through Facebook. I really have seen on X that people get engaged. They want to know more about the creative process. they really are interested in the plots of the books. And so it's not just 25 of your friends that leave a comment, it's people you've never met before that see some keyword in the thing. And so they're more driven to help you out. And we've had just the best results, especially with this book, of people promoting us. They share what we put out there, they put quotes out. It's been very beneficial, and I'm incredibly appreciative of what our super fans have been doing for us. You guys are loved. Mikey and Supersonic and I have talked about it a number of times, that we've really been blessed with some incredible people in our corner.
So when you say this book, you're referring to Mikey's latest, right?
Yes, Ambush of the Dragon.
Yep. I'm making
It's kind of confusing because I'm editing his next book right now. I'm 658 pages out of 750 right now. And he's already completed the book after that. He's his next book, which the title has not been determined, is the best military thriller I've ever read. It is far better than anything a certain nameless author who was an insurance salesman ever wrote back in his day. And I'm not sure it's kosher, but Mikey calls him the motherless blank. And
okay.
and there's a long story behind that, and you'll have to ask DiMercurio next time he's on here, because he tells it far more vigorously than I ever could.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so I should mention Mikey DiMercurio is not one of the authors in my stable of authors. I am thinking about different ways to leverage that, though. I feel like a nice bottle of whiskey might get me the rights. I mean, he's cheap, isn't he? I mean, he can be bought.
A couple of gerbils, yeah. Yeah. That noise you hear, people, is his head exploding in Vermont. It's an inside joke.
He's probably listening by now. So you've
also
mentioned super fan, and I'm glad I've totally forgot. So I wrote this book. It's not very long, and you might remember it better than I do, actually. But it basically encapsulates the vision of what I said at the very beginning with, you need to adopt the creators that you love. You need to be the one that advocates for them, so on and so forth. And that in that book, I give some ideas, but a lot of ideas actually. But I'm thinking by now it's a pretty dated book. Do you recall?
It's dated in terms of social media now.
Yeah.
Because social media drives almost everything we do. Conventional advertising for the kind of work I've been doing just really isn't effective, because every book has a market of its own. And the good authors and smart publishers have an audience it's all siloed somewhere out there.
Sure.
So there's a huge group of people who were in the submarine service, had a brother there, their husband, their dad, and they read these books voraciously and they listen at a very high rate. So DiMercurio's got a set of fans. I do another set of books for, I call them the Poopy Suits guys. And it's Frank and Charles, and they wrote a book called Poopy Suits and Cowboy Boots. And they have a Facebook page of that name. And yeah, well, if you listen to the book, you'll get it. But the point of it is they have super fans of their own who become my super fans. And they look at my page of books on my blog. And the next thing you know, I've got the guys from the Poopy Suits crowd buying DiMercurio books, and vice versa.
Uh-huh.
It's really cool, the crossover of it. But it's because they're all submarine fanatics. And it's cool. I have to be full content honesty here. I was never qualified in submarines. I was what they called an air-stealing, sanitary tank-filling, useless rider. So I would go hop on a submarine and go do nefarious things for a month or two, and then get off the submarine and they'd never see me again. But, excuse me, I spent 6 months total in 3 years, literally underwater. And that does not include time sitting in ports or whatever we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot about submarines in those 6 months. But I could never get qualified because I'd ride an Ethan Allen class ballistic missile submarine, and then I'd ride a Sturgeon class attack submarine, and then a Los Angeles, and then I go back to a sturgeon. So none of these things really have commonality in the qualifications. And the group I was with didn't really encourage you to get your dolphins.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where, like, we don't really want you to advertise where you are. Like,
Are,
all right.
are you saying that you could have, like, theoretically?
I had some friends who were in my office. We were a very small subset of the Navy who did get their fish,
Hmm.
and they learned everything they needed to know about Los Angeles class boats and sturgeons usually. And they were the guys that did the really long missions where you'd take a month to go where you were going because you took the circuitous quiet route, and they would work on their qualifications on the way there. And then when we'd get on target areas, I worked in a different environment, so there were usually like 5 or 6 of us. The guys that went on these longer runs, they'd bring a dozen guys. So you'd actually have some time to like eat and sleep. We worked 24 hours a day for 4 or 5 days in a row before we left our target areas, sometimes longer. And so you didn't have the brain power left to qualify. But there's a very select group of cryptologic technicians and linguists and Morse code guys that do have dolphins, and I'm proud to know a couple of them. They're super sailors.
All right, cool. All right. So, where do you see? How do you see this stuff with Amazon ending? Do you think it's just gonna be the status quo, or do you think eventually all the it'll just the people who don't make any money are just gonna go away, and there'll be only a few of us left standing? What do you think?
I would like to think the demolition derby will have that result. There's so many people that naively go into narration and writing when they can do all their own work that I think they're going to be around forever. They don't care if they make any money. Their life blood pumping in their chest is that novel they wrote in high school that they finally polished off. So those people are zealots in the true ancient Israelite kind of way,
Yeah.
and they're not going to be moved from where they are. The people that will leave the industry are the ones who, they like writing, but they're not all that excited about it. I know a lot of authors that have published 40, 50 books. They're not leaving under any circumstance.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest change in the industry is going to be AI. And I think it's a toxin to the system. And Audible has now started accepting AI narrations in some cases for independent authors. They're encouraging them to go that way. They've made it very easy to do. And for the most part, those books sound like garbage because there's no feeling, there's no proper pausing. I mean, you got to act to be able to do audiobooks. And they wind up being so far from listenable to people of our generation and your generation that they're not going to catch on much with the over 50 crowd.
Mm-hmm.
That I can promise you. But if you're 22 years old and you accepted all the voicemail systems and, press 3 for this and that, that's all AI. And they're going to accept these books easily because they will accept a much lower standard of quality. And they've been raised into it. And I can't fault them for the lack of discretion in what they spend their money on. But that's what's going to happen.
So before I go on with that, did you happen to tune in when I had Darby Kern on a couple weeks ago?
I did not. I've been taking martial arts lessons in the evening, the nights of your podcast for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm only here tonight because my doctor told me no, take a month off.
What a lousy excuse. Anyway, so yeah, so he does like radio dramas. You know that. I'm saying it to
Oh yeah,
people.
yeah.
And he was just getting ready to go down to Chicago at that time, and he had like maybe a dozen voice actors who were going to meet him there.
Yep.
And
yeah, and his stuff is award-winning good.
Yeah, he played a bit of it for us, and like it's the reason why I'm thinking about this is like when I compare that with what I expect AI to generate, I actually don't know that people will in the long run be satisfied with AI when they can have something of that quality.
Well, I refer to my previous career in the computer data transmission world. There is Moore's law. And
Right.
so every couple of years, the amount of data processing goes up, it doubles or more. And AI quality is strictly a function of computing power. And so as people buy more powerful computers for their businesses, AI is going to get better and better. It will never be as good as a really good human narrator, but it's going to get acceptable within the next 5 years, I would think.
Yeah. So from our previous comments, I know that you weren't here for any of our AI episodes either.
No,
Um,
sorry.
but we didn't tackle it quite from this point of view. OJ Wolf Smasher, are you watching tonight? Why don't you chime in if you are, just so I know. Um, do you know OJ Wolf Smasher, Courtemanche?
It's familiar, but I can't place a face.
Okay, well he's yeah, he uses AI. He's a funny guy, but he anyway. I will make sure that you meet him. He kind of does his own sort of Babylon Bee, but he sort of corrals AI for it. But I'm getting off topic a little bit. Where I was going with that is that like he and I kind of felt that despite I mean I hear what you're saying about Moore's law and the advancements that are yet to come, but my feeling is that humans have a kind of like a qualitatively different kind of creativity that AI is just never going to be able to capture. So now that doesn't help maybe in the audiobook generation, but like as far as like actual books and movies or whatnot, I think that's going to remain the domain of humans forever. Personally, I don't think any amount of computing power is going to be able to bridge the gap of the imagination.
No. Hey, Tony, can you mute me for about 4 minutes? My neighbor is doing something with heavy equipment in their yard.
Nothing would give me more pleasure. He can't retaliate. So I guess well then it's just me here for a minute. Uh, Courtemanche, are you able to hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. So Joe Shaw comments most AIs now are like dumb interns with a wide breadth of interest. It can do a lot, but you need someone who knows what they're doing to direct it. So what Joe is saying is you can't tell the difference between an AI and a dumb intern, if I understood that correctly. Yeah. I think the problem with there's so many problems with AI. Like just speaking from my own point of view, I guess that there's a meme that's out there where people the meme makers making the point, why do we have AI creating art when what we really want is AI to do our laundry, right? And like I'm told that's like me, but it really comes down to how we as people in our civilization decides to actually use AI. I realize that I'm not gonna know when you're ready unless I. Are
Oh,
you
I'm
ready?
ready.
You ready? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good to go. So we built our house in the middle of nowhere, or bought it. It was already built. And across the canal from us, there were peaceful trees and fields. And then some guy that owns a construction company bought a 5-acre lot and moved all his equipment over there. So it used to be really bad until I sicked the sheriff on him, literally. Because he'd get out there and start all his diesels up at 5 in the morning. And then I listened to trucks banging in and out all day. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm all for live free, but dude, you're in a neighborhood. Stop it. So the crew just came home because it's just after sunset here.
Uh-huh.
So all their trucks came in, and it's very loud when they do that.
So Supersonic adds that AI will not replace screenwriters anytime soon either. Yeah.
No, and so I wouldn't say I'm a niche narrator, but I have carved out a niche. And I've done a lot of different books. I mean, I've done your books. I did one on the laws of kosher for a Hispanic rabbi in Houston.
Beginning of a joke, right?
Yeah, it almost is. But I've tackled a lot of different things. I just did one for an independent author here recently. And it's a story set in Saudi Arabia. And she needed somebody that spoke Arabic to be able to do the book properly. So I had fun doing that. But yeah, I think there are certain parts of the industry, like the books I just named, you're not going to be able to get AI to do this. You need people with a broad education that can, use their resources to look up information they need, but who actually know it and don't have to struggle with the proper pronunciation of the Hebrew words or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there will always be a place for good or great narrators. And I don't see that changing. I don't think AI can replace us, no matter how sophisticated it is. Even if Grok on X took over, if they quintupled the computing power added to it, you'd still get a very different feeling listening to the book.
Yeah, and that's I think kind of where I was going with what AI can actually do. So like AI is going to be able to write a college essay, some sort of thing that looks scholarly or whatnot. But to come up with a genuine insight, an imaginative insight, I just don't see how it could do that.
That's something narrators are using now. Is we've got search engines available to us, and we can put even a short piece of a manuscript that they send us to do a audition on through this thing, and it will tell you whether it's AI or not. And most professional narrators will not do AI books because they stink. So why would we invest the time needed? I'll give you an example. Most of D. Mercurio's books are about 200,000 words. Some are way more and some are a little bit less. But for every hour of a finished 20-hour audiobook, I have put in probably 80 to 100 actual hours working on it. I don't want to do that for something that AI cranked out in 25 minutes.
Yeah, right.
And risk putting all that into it and having people just widely reject it because they don't read right. I can tell you one thing they would do. And as a narrator, Amazon is rife with gay pornography audiobooks. Like if you wanted to narrate these things, you could be busy 24 hours a day for the rest of your life. And a lot of new narrators cut their teeth on those things.
Wait
but
a minute.
A lot of them are AI.
How? What was it? So, oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. But you said gay. I thought you meant something else. Anyway,
no, the happy books,
joke.
You mean? Yeah.
Bad joke. Hey, before we get further, I wanted to share a story about you that I might be the only person who knows, although your wife might. Do you remember that trip you and I took to Dearborn, Michigan?
Yeah, very well.
Why were we there?
We were giving the cash award that you gave me for winning or not winning, but I think I came in second in your contest for the press back when it was the press. And there was a soldier charity that was holding a big thing there. Ted Nugent, was it Nugent? Ted Nugent or another artist was a big sponsor of the thing. And so we went up there. Oh, I know who it was. It was Kid Rock sponsored the thing.
That's right, yeah.
And then a big furniture chain in the Detroit area also did. Yep. So we went up there to do that. That's why we were there.
It's good memory. Yeah. So yeah, it's coming back. So I dropped Courtemanche off at his hotel, and I was just gonna leave him there. You can correct me if I get the details wrong, but I believe actually you said, could you drop me off at in an Arabic speaking restaurant, right? Or did you just walk
Uh,
there?
I think you took me to the hotel.
Yeah.
I checked in, and then I got a cab over to
Okay.
Dearbornistan.
Yeah. So he wanted to. So if you don't know this, Dearborn has got a very large concentration of people from the Middle East there. And the explanation that he gave me for why he wanted to do this, he wanted to go to a restaurant. He wanted that's where Arabic was the primary language, and sit there and just listen to them talk about him and whatever else, and never let on that he knew what they were saying. So
That was part of it. Also, I needed a bowl of full madamas from Egypt. So
we've it's been at least 10 years I think since then. Did you remember? Did you hear anything of note of interest? Do you remember?
just somebody described me as samin, which means fat. And for the most part, though, the nearby tables, it was a wedding party. Oh, and so they were not the bride and groom, just all their friends went to this place afterwards. And so I didn't hear anything really noteworthy then, but I went to a grocery store a block away looking for some of my favorite Arabic foods. And yeah, I heard a few people commenting on what is that guy doing here? He must be a spy, blah, 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 blah. So
Okay, all right.
I always enjoy those experiences.
So this is a loaded question coming to you from Joe Shaw. Uh, so Joe Prime, do you have any future writing plans on the horizon?
I'm putting off the sequel to Assault on St. Agnes until after you've passed away, Joe. And since you've lost all this weight recently, you've pushed that date even further out with your good health.
So
Joe and I have known each other for a while. We got together through Tony. We've become really good friends. He lives about 4 hours, 5 hours away from me here in Florida. Hey, can I warn people about vanity presses?
sure.
If you have a book that you are just hell bent on publishing, really be cautious about the vanity press you choose. So, Tony, do you still have the semi vanity press thing that you were doing there for a while? Or did you eliminate that?
It's referral only.
Okay, so I would trust a guy like Tony to say, hey, your book is garbage and I won't take your money. But every other person I've ever met, with one exception, that has gone to a vanity press, it was just simply a reason to pick their pockets because they tell you it'll cost you $1,200 start to finish. They'll edit it, they'll get the cover, blah blah blah, and they'll go through it and return it to you and say, "What do you think?" And they made it worse. I mean, that's how bad it is. And they say, "Well, that was our edit. If you want more editing done, that's another $1,200." And so people are like, "Well, geez, I've already got 1,200 into this," and it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper until people have spent $10,000, $15,000 to get a vanity press book out.
Yeah.
And what they do is they ship you the frickin' books in some cases, and then you got to schlep them around and sell them.
Yeah.
In other cases, they sell you on this thing of, oh, we'll get you on bookstore shelves,
Yeah.
bookstores, and you don't. You get put into a marketing company that will get them into bookstores, but they aren't putting my books out there or your books or anyone's books because they've got W.E.B. Griffin's 25-year-old books they're still selling. So it's all a game, and they just cheat the hell out of new authors, and it's
Yeah.
really reprehensible.
Well, you can't really be put in a bookstore. We've looked at excuse me, um my authors have often asked me how to get into like a Barnes and Noble, and we've gone through the process. Um, and they have a very high bar for
Very.
getting in. So any organization that actually that says, yeah, we'll make sure you're in bookstores. Um, the chances of that actually being legit are pretty low. Now I did actually turn down a book once, and this is bizarre. It was by far, I don't know if I want to how much detail I should give about it. Let's just say that I could not in good conscience bring it to print because of the writing quality of it. But there was a family connection that the guy had going. It was about one of his ancestors, and it was fictionalized somewhat, but it was based on reality. And I looked at it, and I still have it actually on my computer as a reminder of just how bad writing can be. And so, but I did tell him though. I said I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. But you should get it published. I mean, go get it done because you've got this family thing. Make sure everyone in your family has it so they know this bit about your family history. And this guy went out and got a vanity press type thingamabob, and he sold thousands of copies. I couldn't believe it.
Really?
Yeah, this I don't know how. Like I look like if I had if I don't know if I have any authors that have sold thousands of copies. To just be completely honest with you, probably a
And
thousand
now
is
I'm sad.
I know 1,000 is probably the most. Um, and this guy with his trash, which was it had the family heirloom aspect of it. He did several printings. It was ridiculous. So there is a question about Vanity Press, and I'll kind of I don't know. I'll say what kind of sets me apart when I do those things a little bit, maybe and explain it. So a vanity press would be um, essentially the vanity, right? Like you think you're good enough, so they're gonna hold the mirror up to you and say you look great, and they're just gonna for a price they're gonna produce your book for you. Um,
Correct.
yeah, and they'll offer all sorts of different services, and these services have changed over time. But the worst of them charge far more than the services that are rendered for them. Uh, I don't know how much I want to kind of get into it. If I like pulled up I can go onto a website and find a list of the things, and I know from one who actually is in the business and who actually produces the books that to do the thing that they said for $500 we'll do such and such. I know it only cost me like 25.
Yep.
That kind of thing. Um, but for me, what I think that I offer um, is like if you open up some of these vanity press books, they just look unprofessional. They're the text inside, it's not going to be justified text. It's going to be, you know, left aligned or whatever, and it
Yep.
just hurts your eyes. And the cover will be some sort of random jigsaw of colors and shapes. And I have a paid graphic designer that I use. I have an in-house team, and so at the very least, what I like to say is I can't promise you that we're going to sell more than 1,000 books because we've never done it. can't can't figure out how to do it. But I can put a product in your hand that you'll be proud of, and you'll be glad it represents you, um, and you will never be ashamed of it. And then what we try to do is we try to work out a game plan so that, and I always tell them, I always say the same thing. None of all of my authors still have their day job. That's what I say. Um,
Yep.
and and many times they'll say, "Well, I think we can do better," and I'm like, "Okay." So then I
Well,
try to
well,
inform and
people.
to educate as much as I can after that.
Yep. You should give out the link to your book page because I got to know a bunch of the other authors that you published, and they're phenomenal. They're some of the best books in their genres.
I know.
And how we haven't had a best-selling author out of that crowd
It's crazy.
just baffles me, dude,
Yeah,
because some of those people are world class.
yeah. I and it hasn't been for lack of trying, as you know. Um,
Yep.
I have spent. I'm really dishing the dirt here. But at this point, I've probably spent $125,000 on advertising,
Yep. I know it's a lot.
and I it's just I think uh, I still believe I basically believe, and maybe it's just a fanciful hope, but I still believe that as soon as one of us takes off, one of us gets it, it's gonna help us feed the whole our whole community of authors. Um,
Absolutely.
and so I just keep plugging away, and when I find a good author, I hold on to them if I can, and someday we'll catch lightning in a bottle, and it'll take off on its own. That's what I'm hoping.
No, and that's the key to all of this is you've got to be determined to take a long ride if you want to be a successful author or narrator. There are people that if the first book they do, whether it's for Audible or for your press or Kindle Direct Publishing, whatever they do, if they don't instantly become a bestseller, they become bitter and walk away right away.
Yeah,
The first couple audiobooks I did, they weren't good. I mean, I'm not fooling anybody but me if I say, ooh, you should really go listen to the first four. I was learning my craft. I was getting better, but I'd come from a place where I was doing industrials, and I taught dentists how to deal with implants and why you had to be really careful or you'd kill the patient. And, I did a lot of commercial voiceover stuff like that before I started doing audiobooks.
okay,
And you need that uh, substantial interest in it. And making an audiobook is not as easy as people think if you want a good one. So my first four, I would guess, were not my best work, but you know what? They were still better than most of the stuff out there. And did I make a lot of money? No, but I started to see the commission checks coming in on them. And that made me very happy. And I was like, hey, this is working. I just got to get better. I'm the one that's on the hook for my career here.
yeah,
And I did something most people don't do. I didn't just wait for authors to call me or audition for things. I read books that I liked and I got in touch with the authors and I said, hey, I'd like to do your audiobook. I'll do a sample for you. And then we can talk about it. And everybody was suspicious of why would you record a chapter of this for me and just send me the file free? Like, because I want your job. I want it really bad. I like your books. Let me do this. And it's paid off. I
yeah,
I picked the books I want to narrate, and it's made me happy. I get exhausted sometimes after I do 10 audiobooks in 13 months, back to back to back. But I like the checks. And looking at Ambush of the Dragon as an example, I nagged the hell out of Michael to publish his backlist on Kindle when the publisher that he'd been with released it. And then I told him, here's how you make an audiobook, because he's super smart. And he sent me a note like 2 weeks later. It said, it's too damn much like work. You want to do them? So I got his entire backlist from the 90s and early 2000s, and I just plugged away at them. I do a book, and then I take a couple weeks off, and I do another book. We just kept pumping them out. And he was getting them released kind of one at a time by the publisher that Crossroad Press. David Wilson does a great job with this stuff. He takes authors that haven't been seen in a while and he republishes their books, republishes some new stuff. And David's a really good author. But the moral of the story is I went up step by step by step. And I think my first Audible check was like for $20.
hmm,
It's a lot more now.
yeah,
But, my encouragement to authors and narrators is if you're really good at it, practice, 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 do volunteer work for Reading for the Blind, perfect your craft, and then go commercial. But don't rush out and say, "Hey, I'm a new narrator and I'll do your book for $50,"
Yeah.
because you're going to read some real garbage and you're going to be sorry.
Hey, did you want to add anything to the Vanity Press stuff that I said?
Um, I think if you're leaning towards a vanity press, uh, just be super cautious because, like Tony said, you do spot things on the websites. And anyone you see where there's a woman with a book open in front of her and she's got a shocked look on her face and she says, "This is your book? We should publish this."
Uh-huh.
Run, because
Yeah.
you know you're going to get scammed bad.
So I would say that generally speaking, the most you should ever spend on something like that uh, would be like $1,000. If
Oh, I
you
would actually go lower.
Well, it depends. It depends on what you're being offered per se. Um,
If
for
they're legit and reputable, $1,000 isn't bad.
Right. The But for me, like the cheapest that I can do one, the absolute cheapest that I can do is 500.
Yep.
So there's there that
There's a spot in there you can hit.
right.
Yeah.
But beyond that, then I know that I'm just ripping people off. you know,
No.
like I know how
Well,
much it costs to have a good cover design, for example.
uh,
You know,
yep.
y- yeah, you can go and I guess you could maybe try getting it with Grok, but the what you have to do is then you have to take that that file and you have to get it um, configured for the technical specifications required by the printer. And
Yes.
there's a
That's a few
knowledge,
bucks.
yeah. Well, there's a knowledge aspect that where
Yep.
it's like what do they say? You're not paying. It only took me 5 minutes to do it, but what you're paying for is the 500 hours it took me to learn how to do it, kind of a thing, kind of an aspect. Um, I will say before I get to what Supersonic just said, um, that even though, regardless of what we just said, um, all the things that we just said, but to go back to the story of that guy who had the terrible book that I wouldn't publish, uh, I do think that especially if you've already written the manuscript, and especially if you've written the manuscript, even if it's just for your family, take if nothing else, yes, you should go to KDP, Amazon's publishing thing, and
Yep.
just put it out there. It's something that you can give your kids or your grandkids, um,
Yes.
and will it be like the next Longfellow? Probably not, but that's not why you're doing it either. But
No.
if you're doing that, don't spend $1,000. Only spend $200. But
Yeah.
you should do it though. Yeah.
The other thing is if you're a new author, um, send copies of the manuscript in PDF format because they're hard to copy in some cases to 15 people who you don't know very well but seem like they're really mean on Twitter or Facebook, and have them touch your book and send it back all marked up like a slasher hit it. I knew I had perfected Assault on St. Agnes when a retired Marine gunnery sergeant in the intelligence field sent it back with 3 or 4 pages, single spaced, of things she liked about the book.
Hmm.
She was no longer sending me grumpy comments. She was like, "This is wonderful. That's great." I was like, I read that one comprehensive review of it. And I was like, now it's time to go to Tony. It's ready to go out in the world. And those people, they got no skin in the game. They're
Right.
more than happy to rip you a new one. And when they come back happier, they say, "Gee, I didn't see any problems with it. It's pretty good." Then you perfected that part of your craft and you're ready to move forward.
I still think Assault on St. Agnes is going to make for a pretty good movie if we can ever pull it off.
I think it would be because, as you know, from when I read it, read it. Oh, I'm an author. I do narration. When I wrote the book, I envisioned each chapter as being a scene in a movie, and I tried to write it like a screenwriter could adapt it pretty quickly. I kept minimal locations and clean sets, and I really worked at getting it that way. And that's another thing. If you've got a book that you think is pretty good, find somebody that does narration and have them read it.
Mm,
Read
yeah.
it out loud yourself. Have your AI read it out loud, and then give it to a friend that does narration or voiceover work of some kind, and have them read through it for you. Because you'd be amazed at the stuff I find, even with great authors, that it's just like, whoa, that doesn't make any sense. Let me get back to them on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very easy to get into a manuscript and read the same paragraph if you're the author of it 100 times and still not see the thing that the first reader notices.
You mean like November 31st?
Something, yeah, something like
Yeah, I found that, what, 3 days before we went to press.
that. Okay.
It was the chapter title, and I called you one evening and you said, "Do you know how much that's going to cost to fix?"
I don't
And
remember
I
that, but
very naively and arrogantly said, "Just take it out of my royalty checks." So that's hubris, folks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, supersonic.
Supersonic's out there somewhere.
Yeah, she's laughing. She's laughing, at, totally at you right now. Um, she may have said something nice about you. I'm not going to share that, but she did give
Of
a nice
course.
warning. Many social media scam accounts are going after authors too right now. Yeah, all the time. Um, and I get a lot of offers like that too. That's why I'm only referral only at this point.
Right.
Because for like I don't mind providing that service for people, but I can't stay in business in good conscience doing that business for people. Does that make sense?
Yes. Plus, I know your wife. She'd be mucho angry.
Yeah. So let's see here. Thomas C says my journalism advisor in college warned us that she loved to make first drafts bleed with red ink. She was ruthless, but she was also constructive with her criticism. Well, that's very kind. All of my editors tried to make me cry like a little girl. Seek counseling. So that was at the beginning of my career, though.
Hey, your books are really good. If people want to read uh, truly a Bible-based story in almost every respect, um, the two books Tony's got on the screen there are excellent books. I really enjoyed narrating those. I mean, they're fun and they're biblically based. I've read other things that people think, oh, it's just, Christian fiction. It's like, no, it's an excellent book that happens to be true to the Bible. And most people have such a shallow understanding of the Bible that they don't realize that's what it is.
But you like the Corn Siege better, though, don't you?
Oh, I love that book. Yeah, that was a blast to narrate. I think it might have come through in my work. So if anybody's listening to this that wants to read Corn Siege, I endorse it very heartily.
So
And if you're one of my super fans on Twitter, X, send me a note. I think I have a few free downloads left.
yeah, yeah. Yes, thank you for that clarification, Joe. So yeah, the Corn Siege and Joe Mikey has been begging me to write the sequel for it. Um, and I'm just not sure I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to pull up the cover here real quick. It won't take me too long. You've only done the 3 books for me. Is that right? Do you think?
I think that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Because we talked about a fourth, but the author had very specific requirements I couldn't meet.
Which one are you talking about?
Anthony's book.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's a great book, don't get me wrong, but I couldn't muster the linguistic skills needed for it because my eighth or seventh, eighth, and ninth grade Latin is a long time in the rearview mirror.
Oh, Thomas C. read the Corn Siege. Oh,
Yay!
awesome.
Good.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun writing it. We'll just say
Well, I'm
that.
sure you did.
Now the sequel, if I ever do, I'm not gonna share too much because I did actually write the first chapter. I have written the first chapter, and the working subtitle for it right now is The Soy Siege.
It just doesn't sound as good. I think I know which way the book turns.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's yeah, I'm not going to give away too much on it. But the problem is for me is so I've got the Birth Pain series. Have you ever read those?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah. And so that's supposed to be a 7-book series, and just because of life, I only finished the 3rd book in November, and
Okay.
I get a lot of hate mail about not having finished the 3rd book of that, and
I,
so yeah, between that and the other part of it is for the Warden Watch and the Fisher King's Apprentice in the 3rd one, which whatever whatever the title will be. Like my creative juices are just kind of going with it. Like the muse is speaking, and I feel like I must obey. Does that make sense?
as much as anything we say tonight does. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. Well, I wrote Nicholas of Hadia was like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right. I'm getting the, hey, Joe, get off the TV sign from my wife.
Do we need to wrap it up for you?
Yeah, unfortunately. She's
Uh,
emerged from her cage, so.
do you have time for me to solicit questions real quick, or are you done?
No, I can do questions real quick.
So you guys type real fast if you want to hit Courtemanche with any last minute questions here. While they're possibly typing, I feel like once again, like every podcast, it's like there's 1,000 things that I want to say, and there's just so little time to do it. Really, yeah.
I understand.
Yep. So thank you for being on tonight, Courtemanche. This was your instigation. I'm really glad that you did. Uh, re-
Yeah, I finally had a Tuesday night off where I could
yeah.
talk.
Hey, we have a question for you from Jeff Rogue.
All right.
How do you decide how a character is going to sound? What's the process of how a character is going to sound?
I think it might be schizophrenia in my case.
Are you trying to make Mikey de Mercurio angry when you do it, or you just sort of do it
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. On the regular. There are there are some character voices in his books that if he could drag me over a gravel road behind a pickup truck, he would. And I purposely do it to push his buttons. No doubt about it. Now, other voices, I'll give you an example. In Ambush of the Dragon, there's a captain of one of the submarines named Mikey Sidice. And when I read the book, because I helped him edit these things long before we married him, I just pictured Mikey Sidice as kind of like this really cool, good-looking California, Hawaii kind of dude, because he comes from Hawaii a couple of books ago. And so I'm reading them in my head. The voice comes out like, "Hey, I'm Mikey Sidice. How are you?" And Dear Mercurio absolutely loathes that voice. He's like, "That's not how it is. He's not that like that." I said, "Dude, I read him as a surfer boy, and he's a surfer boy." So yes, Jeff, I purposely do that to screw with him sometimes.
Well, I was the one that asked if you did it on purpose.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely do. No
So
doubt.
JB wants to know, like, how do you keep track of how do you like keep that consistent throughout? So like you don't have one voice for a person at the beginning and then that character only shows up later on. And do you like keep notes? Do you have like do you chart it out?
Well, some narrators do, and I probably am going to need to start doing it with Michael because he adds voices that I have to come up with every book. I mean, it's a lot, and so he's got characters that carry on book to book, and I'm able to keep track of them. That's not so bad because they're the same people over and over again.
Mhm.
But he'll throw somebody new into the mix, and I'll narrate them for like the first 8 or 9 chapters before he actually comes up and says, she said in her silky baritone voice. That's like, I've been reading this as a high pitched soprano the whole time. Now I got to go back and change it. So I figured out several books ago. Go ahead, Lily. You can go out. I figured out several books ago that um, nobody would notice it if they were a relatively minor character for the first part of the book. If I suddenly gave her a silkier voice,
Mhm.
and I would gradually change my way into it throughout the rest of the book. Because going back and editing stuff in like that for a minor character, it's not productive time. But
Yeah.
if it's
Yeah.
somebody I've been misreading and I get a chapter or two in and the author says something very specific about the voice, I will go back and re-record that character's stuff. But I pretty much don't write them down. I have a fairly good memory for it. Sometimes if I'm narrating something that I know I've done that character before, like 2 or 3 books ago, I've got to get out the master files off the backup drive and listen to them again so I can be true to that character.
Yeah.
And that's my little doggie with her toy kitty,
Yeah.
who has now decided to make a menace of herself.
We
Here, let me
we
have the
were
kitty.
we were all a little worried about you.
I was channeling Morris the cat. Yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to bid you farewell and thank you again for your time. And the
you're
next
absolutely
time that
welcome.
you've got a free Tuesday or Thursday, uh, be free to be proactive in saying, "Hey, I want to be on."
Yeah, and so I know you've read a few of the names that were here. You got a couple guys there that, if you look them up on X, they're pretty fascinating people too, and they would be excellent interview characters. So,
Well, I believe I'm ex friends with all of them, and they all know about my invitations, but they have not said they want to be on yet. So maybe we'll work
all
on it
right,
together.
all right,
All
sounds like
right,
a deal.
I'm gonna let you go and then wind this up. Thank you,
Thanks, thanks,
Editor
Tony.
Prime.
Bye
All right,
bye.
adios. So I'm just gonna answer the question that JB asked. Let me silence Courtemanche. There we go. So for my birth pain series, I have a 200 page, about 200 pages of notes, and I have a timeline. I have a table in my office. Um, it's looks like 2.5 foot by 3 feet long, 4 feet maybe, 4 feet, and all it is it's just one giant piece of paper with the timeline tracking the characters of folks. So that's for me. That's my most complicated series, which is actually one reason why it took so. I'm looking at it as I'm talking. One reason why it really took me so long to pick it back up again because I knew how much work it was. I knew that it would be basically like a job, um, essentially, to do that. So for me, at least, uh, I do keep notes on my books, on my characters, because people are going to pick up um, they'll catch the plot holes, and I don't want them to. Do you have the plot scripted for that, or is it just a high level? No, it's pretty detailed, and it's just killing me. I have someone asked me, do I have the plot scripted for it, or is it just a high level thing? So yeah, I know pretty much how all 7 books are supposed to go. Um, Pretty granular, but I will concede that sometimes I'll get into it, and I'll even be surprised myself with like, oh, like I'll get to a scene and I'll know, like, here's this scene, my head has that, and then my head has this scene, and then I realize I have no idea how these things are connected, like, and I just have to stop for a while, and usually it just comes like almost like a flash of lightning. And there's one scene in the first book, Fidelis, where I was at a movie and the scene that I was lacking, like, was written on my brain, and like I knew it, and then it was able to tie it together. It's crazy. So I'm not going to talk about me too much. Nobody really wants to talk about me. That's why I have guests. So Thursday, I'm strongly considering doing a topic of alternate history, and people have given me some good suggestions on some alternate histories to look at. And I actually picked up a book, but I noticed that the book was published in 2000, and it occurs to me that well, a lot has happened since 2000. So I'm thinking of 9/11 could be something um, that would be excuse me, something of interest to contemplate. So if you want to kind of riff with me on what the world would be like if Clinton had only tracked down those Al Qaeda bastards and run them in. Sorry, uh, I'm not entirely sure. Well, I'm taking suggestions on it, I guess, because that one's pretty. Another one that we could do is what if either one of the presidential candidates in 2000 had won definitively and decisively? I mean, if you were, I think all of my watchers over here are old enough to remember the hanging chads. A lot of people wouldn't. Uh, but I feel that that was a turning point in our country. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The U.S. That's cool. So I'm strongly thinking about doing that. Another one that I'm thinking of doing, and I already pitched this to Courtemanche actually, and I hinted at it with Mercurial, although I don't know if he would remember, is doing something about the just how transparent should we be? Should our government be in releasing information? Like, I think most people, um, almost everyone that I know, thinks that we should know everything about the JFK and Epstein thing. Like now, we shouldn't have to wait any longer. But I suspect that there are some issues where some people might say, "Well, no, we should keep this information back." And in my mind, 99% of it should just be released. And I have some very specific examples. So that will be in a future episode too, I think. And then the episode that was going to be for today was one of my favorite topics of just contemplating whether or not the brain is just a lump of flesh and whether or not we can trust it. I don't know. Maybe no one else is interested in that, but I find it to be a very electrifying topic. So, um, last thing. I do have 2 minutes technically. Um, there was several comments and questions about how best to help an author with like how you actually make the purchase. I've always appreciated it when readers or content consumers, will call them, have asked me, what's the best way to help you with my purchase? And I think that if that's something that's on your mind, you want to help an author, maybe you can't afford to buy the 1,000 books that I recommended. Just ask them kind of straight up, like, what's the way to purchase this book that'll give you the most benefit? And I'm going to answer for myself as an author of hard copy books. There's my Audible books are on Audible. That's the only place they are. But for hard copy books, I would still say, even though I only get a couple bucks out of it, if you're just going to buy one copy, buy it. Just buy it from Amazon, because I don't have to do anything. So yeah, I don't make as much. I am only going to make a couple bucks, but I don't have to pack it up. I don't have to print it, or not print it. Go to the post office. I don't have to do any of that. Amazon just takes care of all that, and then they send me a couple bucks. But if you're going to buy anything in bulk, I would say 10 copies or more, kind of a thing. Um, that's where my Gutenberg Press site that I started, which I haven't really talked a whole lot about, but the whole point of it is to provide a platform for me and my authors to sell their works at a higher return without being censored and throttled by any algorithms, anything like that. So even if you don't see on the Gutenberg Press site, see you, JB. Appreciate it. Oh, but I'm going to play the outro music here in a second. Don't miss it. Anyway, it's the whole point of it is to get around big tech. So I have that there. If you don't see what you want there, all you have to do is ask, and I will create a custom listing for you, and we'll be able to give you a discount. That's the other thing. Like on Amazon, there's no way for me to give you a discount on books, but on Gutenberg Press, I definitely do. So that's all I'm going to say. It's right on the 8 o'clock hour. I appreciate you being here. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all the other stuff. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being our super fans. And I've got a little exit music for you. So here we go. Thanks a lot.